At some point or the other, you've probably written a bio for your social media profiles. Through these bios or short summaries, we try to convey what we think about ourselves or what we'd like someone else to know about us. In other words, we describe how we perceive ourselves. This perception of self constitutes our self-concept. Mabuhay. Today's lesson is focused on self-concept, which is the first lesson under Module 1 entitled Self-Development. And here are the most essential learning competencies set by the Department of Education. 1. Explain that knowing oneself can make a person accept his or her strengths and limitations and dealing with others better. 2. Share his or her unique characteristics, habits, and experiences. Having enumerated the most essential learning competencies, I would like to present to you the following guide questions. These guide questions will help you to focus on the essential concepts that you need to learn about this lesson. 1. What is self-concept? 2. How can a person achieve self-actualization? Essential learning competencies and the guide questions were already presented to you. We are now ready to discuss our lesson on self-concept. In this lesson, we are going to talk about the meaning of self-concept, the formation of self-concept, the components of self-concept, and self-actualization. Self-concept is the image or the idea we have about ourselves. It can be thought of as our perception of our abilities, behaviors and characteristics. It helps us draw a mental picture of who we are physically, socially and emotionally. We form and develop our self-concept over time. It is shaped and influenced by our knowledge and interactions with our immediate environment. Self-concept begins during early childhood. It continues to develop and evolve throughout our life. Our self-concept can affect various aspects of our lives, including our careers. Most theories suggest that there's a strong relationship between self-concept and our motivation levels at work. In an organization, people take on projects, work towards different goals and make choices that drive the business. We generally direct our efforts to complete projects and achieve milestones. By accommodating these external changes, we make room for personal growth. It can be said that our workplace behavior is tied to our view about ourselves, who we are and what we want to achieve. The self-concept is an important term for both social and humanistic psychology. The development of a concept of self has two aspects: existential self and categorical self. The existential self is the most basic part of the self-scheme or self-concept, the sense of being separate and distinct from others and the awareness of the constancy of the self. The child realizes that they exist as a separate entity from others and that they continue to exist over time and space. Awareness of the existential self begins as young as 2 to 3 months old and arises in part due to the relation the child has with the world. For example, the child smiles and someone smiles back, or the child touches a mobile and sees it move. The categorical self allows the individual to realize that he or she exists as a separate experiencing being. The child next becomes aware that he or she is also an object in the world. Just as other objects including people have properties that can be experienced big, small, red, smooth and so on, so the child is becoming aware of himself or herself as an object which can be experienced, and which has properties. The self too can be put into categories such as age, gender, size or skill. Two of the first categories to be applied are age, I am 3, and gender, I am a girl. In early childhood, the categories children apply to themselves are very concrete, for example, hair color, height and favorite things. Later, self-description also begins to include reference to internal psychological traits, comparative evaluations and to how others see them. The influential American psychologist Carl Rogers was the first to discuss the components of self-concept in 1959. He wrote about 3 major components: self-image, self-esteem, and ideal self. Self-image is how we view ourselves. Our self-image is a combination of different attributes such as personality traits, social roles, and physical attributes. A person's self-image is affected by many factors, such as parental influences, friends, the media, etc. Self-esteem is the value that we place on ourselves. Our self-esteem often depends on how we evaluate ourselves. In other words, we make personal comparisons and validate how others respond to us. For example, when our managers respond favorably to our achievements, we are encouraged by our performance and our self-esteem grows. The ideal self is centered on how we wish we could be. For example, if our goal is to lead a large team someday, we create an ideal self and make a checklist of goals we want to work towards. We may direct all our efforts towards achieving that ideal version for ourselves. Carl Rogers is a humanistic psychologist, who believed that humans have one basic motive, that is the tendency to self-actualize. An individual is unique, and he or she is meant to develop in different ways according to his or her personality. Rogers believed that people are inherently good and creative. They become destructive only when a poor self-concept overrides the valuing process. Carl Rogers believed that for a person to achieve self-actualization they must be in a state of congruence. This means that self-actualization occurs when a person's ideal self is congruent with his or her self-image. Rogers describes an individual who is actualizing as a fully functioning person. The main determinant of whether we will become self-actualized is childhood experience. In many ways, Rogers regarded the fully functioning person as an ideal and one that people do not ultimately achieve because it is a process of always becoming and changing. Rogers identified 5 characteristics of the fully functioning person. 1. Open to experience. An individual accepts both positive and negative emotions. Positive feelings are celebrated and negative feelings are worked through. 2. Existential living. The individual is in touch with different experiences as they occur in life, avoiding prejudging and preconceptions. Being able to live for the moment. 3. Trust feelings. The individual pays and trusts his or her feelings, instincts, and gut reactions. He or she trusts himself or herself to make the right choices. 4. Creativity. Creative thinking and risk-taking are features of a person's life. A person does not play safe all the time. This involves the ability to adjust and change and seek new experiences. 5. Fulfilled life. A person is happy and satisfied with life, and always looking for new challenges and experiences. For Rogers, fully functioning people are well-adjusted, well-balanced, and interesting to know.